I was in my own building. Whitfield Construction. I built it brick by brick over 35 years. At 7:58 in the morning, 2 minutes early, I walked through the front doors carrying a manila folder. Inside that folder was invoice number 417, $47,000 for a company called Whitfield Consulting. I had never heard of Whitfield Consulting. I made it 3 steps past the reception desk when Vanessa appeared from her office. My daughter-in-law. She was wearing a cream blazer and a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Henry, she said, I didn't expect you today. Well, I'm here. She stepped into my path. The board meeting is in an hour. It's really just a quarterly review. Mark and I have everything handled. I need to talk to you about an invoice. Her smile tightened. Which invoice? Number 47? Whitfield Consulting. $47,000 for consulting services? I don't recall authorizing any consulting contract. She laughed. It was a light, practice sound. Henry, you've been retired for 3 months. We have new vendors, new relationships. I handle the finances now. I'd like to see the contract. That's not necessary. I'm not asking if it's necessary, I said. I'm asking to see it. She stared at me for 3 full seconds. Then she turned to the receptionist, a young woman named Cheryl who had been with the company for maybe 6 months. Cheryl, Vanessa said, call security, please. Cheryl's hand hesitated over the phone. Mrs. Whitfield? You heard me. Cheryl picked up the receiver. I watched her dial. My building? My receptionist? My daughter-in-law having me removed. Henry, Vanessa said, her voice dropping to something that sounded almost sorry. We've been worried about you. The retirement transition has been stressful. Some confusion is normal. Confusion. You showed up here last week looking for the old file room. Linda had to bring you coffee and help you find the bathroom. That never happened. Of course you don't remember. She shook her head slowly. That's the problem, Henry. You're not the man who built this company anymore. You're a confused old man, and we need to protect you from yourself. A confused old man? She said it right there in the lobby. Cheryl heard it. A delivery driver sorting packages by the break room heard it. I looked at my hands, holding the folder. Steady. Not a tremor. 2 security guards came through the side door. I knew both of them. Mike and Darren. I hired them 6 years ago after a theft incident. Mr. Whitfield, Mike said. He looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry, Mike. You're doing your job. Vanessa stepped closer. Give me the folder, Henry. This folder stays with me. Security, she said. Please escort Mr. Jennings. Whitfield off the premises. He is not permitted on company property without prior approval. Darren reached for my arm. I let him take it. I did not resist. But I did not hand over the folder. As Darren's hand closed around my elbow, I glanced past Vanessa, down the hallway to the boardroom door. The door was propped open. I could see the long mahogany table, the high-backed leather chairs. I could see the small microphone I had placed under the lip of the table that morning, before anyone arrived. The microphone was still there. The recording device was still on. Vanessa followed my gaze. She frowned. Is something interesting in the boardroom, Henry? No, I said. Nothing you haven't seen before. Mike and Darren walked me through the front doors. Tay! I felt the morning air on my face, the sun warm but not hot. April in Chicago was unpredictable. I stood on the sidewalk with my folder and watched the glass doors slide shut. And if this story resonates with you, please consider subscribing to Revenge Stories. It helps more than you know. Mike held the door handle for a moment longer. Mr. Whitfield, he said through the gap, I'm real sorry. Don't be, Mike. Go back to work. He let the door close. I turned and walked toward my truck. The folder was still in my hands. Invoice number 407 was still inside. And 4 blocks away, in my glove compartment, was a USB drive with the last 7 months of company financial records. A confused old man. I started the engine and pulled out of the lot. I did not look back. I had work to do. I set the folder on the passenger seat. It sat there like a loaded weapon. I drove home without music. The streets of Naperville scrolled past, and I did not see them. All I saw was Invoice 417, $47,000 typed so neatly it looked legal. My house was dark. Betty passed away 6 years ago, and I still forget to leave lights on. I sat at the kitchen table with the folder. The USB drive was in my hand. I turned it over twice before plugging it into my laptop. 7 months of financial records. I backed them up that morning before I went to the office. I never told him about the drive. Henry Whitfield, paranoid and old. I clicked into the accounts payable database and started searching. Whitfield Consulting. I typed the name into the search field. The system paused for a moment and I held my breath. 8 invoices popped up on the screen. I stared at them. February 3rd, March 2nd, March 28th, April 10th, and 4 more spread across the months like landmines, each one for a different amount. 4,000, 8,000, 12, 19, 46. They had gotten bolder over time. Invoice 417 was the largest. The notes column read, Consulting Services. No project name. No hours billed. No breakdown of labor or materials. Just a clean number and a line that said, Approved by V. Whitfield, Vanessa's initials. Every single one. I clicked on the vendor information. Whitfield Consulting. The registered address was a P.O. box in Naperville, Illinois. I wrote it on a sticky note. Then I opened a browser and searched the name alongside the address. The results took 4 seconds. Derek Whitfield was listed as the registered agent. Vanessa's brother. I had met him once, maybe twice. Slick kid with a fast mouth and expensive shoes. He had bounced between car sales and timeshare schemes. Now he owned a consulting company with no website, no phone number, and a P.O. box for an office. I printed the P.O. box record and set it on the stack. Total skimmed. I added every Whitfield Consulting invoice on a sheet of legal paper by hand. 47,000, 32, 46. I wrote each number the old way, same as I did when I was pouring concrete and counting every penny by flashlight at a job site. The total came to $208,000. $208,000 over 8 months. I read the number 6 times to make sure I was not seeing things. Then I counted again. Same number. Vanessa had approved every single one. Her initials in the approval field. VH, like a signature on a counterfeit check. I printed the invoice approval screens. Each one had a timestamp. 11:48 in the morning, 3:22 in the afternoon. She had done it during office hours. Right under Mark's nose. I opened the bank statements. The payments had cleared. Whitfield Construction's accounts payable had wired money to a Chase account under Whitfield Consulting's name. I printed those too. 2 hours passed. I did not stand up once. The kitchen got darker as the sun moved. My coffee went cold beside my hand. I had a folder now, a real one, invoices, bank statements, the P.O. box, registration. I lined them up on the table in date order, the same way I used to file permits in my office. Evidence, clean and cold as steel. I looked at the sheet of legal paper with the total. 208,000. I underlined it twice. Then I set the folder in my briefcase and snapped the lock shut. Tomorrow I would call my son, but tonight I had work to do and one more invoice to trace. I drove to Mark's house after 2 more days of investigation. Thursday, April 13th. I parked across the street and sat in my truck for a long moment. The folder sat on the passenger seat. $208,000. 8 months of invoices, all with her initials. Mark's house was a new build in a subdivision called Willow Creek. Big windows, a 3-car garage. Vanessa's white Mercedes sat in the driveway. I had helped Mark with the down payment, 20%. A gift from his mother's life insurance. I walked up the stone path and rang the bell. Mark opened the door in his bathrobe. He looked surprised and a little guilty, like a kid caught skipping school. Dad, it's 8:30 in the morning. I know what time it is. Is everything okay? Can I come in? He stepped aside. I walked into the kitchen. Vanessa wasn't there yet, but I could hear water running upstairs. The kitchen was all white cabinets and quartz countertops. Vanessa had picked them out. She had picked out everything. Mark poured himself coffee. He didn't offer me any. Mark, sit down. He looked at me and must have seen something on my face because he sat. I pulled out the folder and laid it flat on the kitchen island. I opened it to the first page. Invoice number 417, $47,000, Whitfield Consulting. Tell me what you know about this. Mark glanced at it. His face went pale. I don't know. It's an invoice. Do you know who owns Whitfield Consulting? He shook his head, but it was a bad shake. Too fast. Derek Whitfield, your wife's brother. He's not my brother-in-law, Mark said. He's hers. That doesn't make it better. I laid out the other pages. Bank statements, the P.O. box registration, the approval signatures, VH and Vanessa's handwriting on every single one. Mark stared at them. His hands were on the counter, flat, like he was bracing himself. Did you know? I asked. No. But you signed some of these approvals. He opened his mouth, closed it. I trusted her. You signed without reading. I signed what she put in front of me. Mark. That's not an answer. His voice went thin. She said they were consultants. She said you had a relationship with them. I have a relationship with Whitfield Consulting? I've never met anyone from Whitfield Consulting. I've never heard of them until last week. She said you'd signed off. Show me my signature. He couldn't. The water stopped running upstairs. I heard footsteps. Vanessa would be coming down soon. I looked at my son, 38 years old. My only child. I had taught him how to read a blueprint when he was 12, how to swing a hammer, how to level a foundation. I had never taught him how to spot a liar. Dad, I need time. You need to do something. Let me talk to her. She'll lie to you. You don't know that? Mark, I have the evidence. He looked at the floor. I need to think. I knew then that he wouldn't choose me. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. Ow! Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway. Ah! She was already dressed. Navy blazer, gold earrings, her phone in her hand. Henry, you're not supposed to be here. I'm talking to my son. Mark, why is he in our kitchen? Mark didn't answer. He was still looking at the floor. Vanessa walked to the island. She looked at the papers spread across the counter. Ah! Her face didn't change. She picked up the invoice and held it like it was something dirty. This is harassment. It's evidence. This is my kitchen. This is my home. You walk in here, you spread papers around, you accuse me of. I haven't accused you of anything. I've shown my son the truth. Vanessa turned to Mark. Are you going to let him do this? Mark didn't answer. Mark! I don't know, he said. Vanessa's voice went cold. You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police. You're going to call the police on your father-in-law? You're trespassing. I'm standing in a kitchen I helped pay for. You're a confused old man who doesn't know what he's talking about. I looked at Mark. You hear that? That's who you married. Mark's head came up. Dad, just go. Mark, she's stealing from your company. I said go. I closed the folder. I picked it up and tucked it under my arm. I walked to the front door, and I heard Vanessa behind me. Henry, if you come near my family again, I will file a restraining order. Do what you need to do. I'm not joking. Neither am I. I walked out. The door closed behind me. Might! I heard the lock turn. I sat in my truck for 5 minutes. The next morning, April 14th, I called Henry Pendleton. The restraining order arrived on Monday morning, April 17th. A sheriff's deputy knocked on my door at 6:45 a.m. I was still in my bathrobe, coffee half finished on the counter. Henry Whitfield? He held out a thick envelope. I took it. That's me. You've been served. I signed the receipt, closed the door, sat down at the kitchen table, and read every page. Vanessa had done it properly. Temporary restraining order filed in DuPage County. She claimed I had been harassing her and Mark, that I had shown up at their home uninvited, that I had made false accusations designed to destabilize the company, that I was a danger to her mental well-being. The judge had signed it that morning. I was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Vanessa Whitfield, prohibited from contacting her by phone, email, or any other means, prohibited from entering the premises of Whitfield Construction. I read that line twice. The building I'd built with my own hands. 35 years of my life, and I was legally barred from walking through its front door. I set the papers down. I finished my coffee. Then I called Henry Pendleton. He answered on the first ring. "Henry, I was about to call you." Vanessa filed a restraining order. "Jow!" "We know. Mark's lawyer called mine this morning." "So you have it." "I have a copy. Henry, does this change anything with the audit?" "Not a thing." "Good, because I've been going through the records you sent me, and I found something interesting." I waited. "The Whitfield Consulting invoices aren't the only problem. Derek Whitfield has been using the company credit card for personal expenses. A car rental in Orlando, a hotel at a resort near Tampa, total of $3,200. Linda told me." "Linda called you?" "She called this morning, said she'd found some emails." Henry paused. "She sent me those emails as well. They show Vanessa pressuring the accounting department to expedite payments to Whitfield Consulting, rushing the approvals, marking them as urgent." "How many?" 7 emails over 8 months, all from Vanessa, all demanding that invoices from Whitfield Consulting be paid within 3 business days. I felt the cold settle into my chest. "Prince?" "I have screen captures, timestamps, recipient names. It's a clear pattern, Henry." "And the audit?" "For the board meeting? Ready by May 5th. I've already scheduled a conference call with the board. I told them it's time sensitive." "You told them why?" "I told them I had discovered irregularities in the financial records. That's all. They agreed to the meeting." I looked at the restraining order on the table. "I can't be there in person." "I know. You can join by phone." "That works." "Henry, one more thing." "What?" "I reviewed the bank statements for Whitfield Consulting's Chase account, the one your Linda found. There are deposits matching every invoice Whitfield Construction paid, and then withdrawals, transfers to a personal account in Vanessa's name." "Show me." "I have the statement. $47,000 from invoice 417 moved into her account the day after it was paid." I closed my eyes. So she was paying herself directly. Your daughter-in-law was paying herself from a shell company she controlled. "How much total?" "Every invoice, every deposit, $208,000. And she kept 2/3 of it. The rest went to Derek." I opened my eyes. "Henry, I need you to prepare a packet. For each board member, copies of everything." "I've already started." "Make sure the board gets it before the meeting." "Not during. Before. They'll have it by the morning of May 4th. I thanked him, hung up, sat in my kitchen for a long time. The next morning, April 18th, the phone rang again. I checked the screen. "Linda, Henry, you get served?" "I did." "Good. Because I found something else, something Vanessa forgot to delete." "What?" "She sent an email to the accounting department 3 weeks ago, telling them to shred the paper copies of any invoices from Whitfield Consulting. Said it was a routine files cleanup." I felt my jaw tighten. "Did they do it?" "No. The accounting manager had a bad feeling. She held on to them. She gave me the originals this morning." "Linda." "Yeah? You're a miracle." "I know. What do you want me to do with them?" "Keep them safe. I'll send someone to pick them up." "Who?" "Henry's paralegal. She'll be there in an hour." I hung up, stood up, walked to my home office and opened the drawer where I kept the folder. I added Henry's notes to it, the screen captures, the bank statements, the emails from Linda. I wrote on a sticky note, Vanessa's account, $28,000, Derek's card, $3,200. I stuck it to the front of the folder. Then I called my lawyer, the one handling the restraining order. I need you to file a response. On what grounds? She filed a false restraining order to hide evidence of embezzlement. I have documentation. How much time do you need? 5 minutes. I'll email you the folder. Do that. And Henry? Yes? The hearing is set for May 8th. That's 3 days after the board meeting. Perfect. I hung up. I opened my laptop. I scanned every document and sent it to my lawyer's office. Then I sat back in my chair. I didn't need to be at the board meeting to win. I didn't need to be in the same room as Vanessa. I didn't need to look Mark in the eye. I had the evidence. I had the auditor. I had the board. And Vanessa had a court date coming on May 8th. I closed the laptop. I walked to the kitchen. I poured a fresh cup of coffee and sat at the table. The folder sat across from me, the one I could hand to my lawyer. Up against a lawsuit, outnumbered by lawyers, I did not lose my composure. I lost nothing at all. I handed the folder to my lawyer. Make sure the board gets this before the meeting. He nodded. I didn't need to be there to win. The conference line clicked. I pressed the speaker button on my desk phone and set it next to my coffee cup. The call was scheduled for May 5th at 10 in the morning. I was in my kitchen. I was wearing a button-down shirt and slacks because you don't attend a board meeting in sweatpants even if you're joining by phone. I heard Mark's voice first. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Then Vanessa, let's keep this efficient. We have quarterly numbers to review. And then Henry Pendleton's voice, calm, measured. Actually, before we begin the quarterly report, I have a preliminary audit finding I need to share with the board. Silence on the line. I heard a chair creak. Someone cleared their throat. Vanessa said, Henry, we have an agenda. The audit isn't scheduled until the end of the month. Ma'am, this cannot wait. Henry Pendleton had worked for Whitfield Construction for 22 years. He had never raised his voice in a meeting. He had never interrupted an agenda. He had never said, this cannot wait about anything. And every single person on that board knew it. I heard Mark say, let's hear it, Henry. Another silence. Oh! Then the sound of papers sliding across a table. Henry said, I had examined all vendor invoices from the past 12 months. Specifically, I reviewed every invoice from a company called Whitfield Consulting. That company was paid $208,000 over 8 months. Vanessa said, Whitfield Consulting provides project management support. That's been approved. Henry said, yes, you approved every single invoice, Mrs. Whitfield. The pause that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Henry continued, Whitfield Consulting's registered address is a P.O. box in Naperville, Illinois. Its sole owner is a man named Derek Whitfield. I have confirmed that Derek Whitfield is your brother. I heard Vanessa's voice shift. Sharper, colder. My brother is a consultant. There's nothing improper about hiring family members. No, there isn't, Henry said. But let me read you. Invoice number 417, dated April 10th, 2023. For $47,000 for consulting services. The pause stretched. Henry said, I have bank statements showing that on April 11th, the day after this invoice was paid, $47,000 was transferred from Whitfield Consulting's business account to a personal account in your name, Mrs. Ackend. Whitfield. The silence on that call was louder than anything I have ever heard. Then Vanessa said, this is a personal matter. It has nothing to do with the company. The board disagrees, a new voice said. It was Harold Chen. He was the oldest board member, 69 years old, retired banker. He had been on the board since the company was founded. Henry, do you have documentation? I have copies of every invoice. I have copies of every approval signature, initialed VH, by Mrs. Whitfield. I have bank statements showing the transfer pattern. I have a registration record for Whitfield Consulting showing Derek Whitfield as the sole officer. I have emails from Mrs. Whitfield to the accounting department requesting expedited payment on Whitfield Consulting invoices. And I have a credit card statement showing Derek Whitfield used a company card for $3,200 in personal expenses at a Florida resort. More silence. "Oh!" Mark said. "Vanessa?" She said, "I'll explain this later, privately." Harold Chin said, "The board would like that explanation now." Vanessa's voice went flat. "I don't answer to a board meeting. I'm not an employee. I'm a family member." Henry said, "You're a signatory on the company's primary operating account. That makes you a fiduciary, and I have evidence that you have been siphoning funds through a shell company for 8 months." I heard a thud. Someone slammed a hand on a table. Then Vanessa said, "This is illegal. You can't do this." Harold Chin said, we can, and we will." Henry said, "I have prepared a full report for the board. I recommend 3 actions. First, remove Mark Whitfield as president, effective immediately. Second, refer this matter to the DuPage County District Attorney's Office. Third, bar Vanessa Whitfield from the premises of Whitfield Construction indefinitely." Vanessa said, "You can't do that. Mark owns the company now." Harold Chen said, "Mark owns 40%. The board controls the remaining 60. We have the votes." I heard Mark's voice, small, like a child. "Dad, are you on this call?" I took a breath. "I'm here, Mark." The pause that followed was the longest of my life. Vanessa said, "This is a setup. He planted evidence. He's been obsessed." Harold Chen interrupted. "Mrs. Whitfield, the evidence was collected by an independent auditor. It has been verified. The board has voted." Vanessa said, "The board can't." "The board has voted," Harold said again. "Mark, you are removed as president effective immediately. Vanessa, security is on its way to escort you out." "Gee, Jess!" I heard a chair scrape, a sharp breath. Then Vanessa's voice, tight and trembling. "This is illegal. I'll sue every one of you." Harold said, "You're welcome to try. In the meantime, the police have been notified." The line went quiet. Then I heard the door to the boardroom open, and a voice I didn't recognize said, "Mrs. Whitfield, you need to leave the premises." Silence. Then footsteps, a door closing. I sat in my kitchen. My coffee had gone cold. The clock on the wall said 10 minutes past 10. Everything had taken 10 minutes. The meeting continued, but I barely heard it. I heard Harold Chen say something about interim leadership. I heard Henry say something about the criminal referral. I heard Mark say nothing at all. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel satisfied. I felt the hollow weight of watching my son's world collapse, knowing I had been the one to set the dominoes in motion. But I also felt peace, because the building I built was still standing, and the people who tried to burn it down had been walked out the front door. I heard Mark's voice again, quiet, broken. "Dad? Can we talk later?" I didn't answer right away. Vanessa had repeated something over and over from the moment she had security remove me from the building I built. She had called me a confused old man. "Oh, sweetheart, we haven't even started." I hung up the phone. I stood up. I walked to the window. The sun was out. The trees were starting to bloom. It was spring in Chicago, and everything was rotten underneath. But not for much longer. The phone rang at 6:30 on the morning of May 6th. I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold 2 hours ago. I picked up on the first ring. It was Henry Pendleton. His voice was steady and professional, like he was reading me the weather instead of delivering news that would crack my family in half. "They picked up Derek Whitfield at his home about an hour ago," he said. "DuPage County Sheriff's Office. They had a warrant." He was still in his bathrobe? I closed my eyes. I pictured Derek in that expensive Naperville house with the white columns and the landscaping that cost more than most people's cars. The house he bought with my company's money. I imagined him standing in his marble foyer surrounded by deputies, his fast mouth finally running out of words. "Any resistance?" I asked. "None," Henry said. He lawyered up immediately. But they already had what they needed. Bank records, invoices, your testimony, my audit. He's looking at felony fraud charges. Federal, if the DA decides to push it that way. I let that sink in. Derek Whitfield, the guy who bounced between car lots and timeshare schemes, the guy who showed up to our family dinners in $1,000 shoes and talked about synergy. He was going to prison, and he deserved every day of it. What about Vanessa? I asked. Henry paused. I didn't like that pause. The court issued a freeze on all accounts linked to her effective tomorrow, May 7th, he said. Joint accounts with Mark, personal accounts, everything. She can't access a dime. How much did they recover? Not enough. $208,000 was transferred out over 8 months. Most of it went to Derek's consulting company, then into her personal account. She kept roughly 2/3. Derek got the rest. The freeze should catch about $40,000 still in her personal savings. The rest is gone. Spent. Vacations, cars, that house renovation they did this spring. I remembered the renovation. New kitchen. Marble countertops. Vanessa had posted pictures on social media. Our forever home, she wrote. A heart emoji. That was my money. My company's money. My son's inheritance pissed away on cabinets and fixtures. How is Mark? I asked. Henry was quiet for a moment before he spoke. He told Linda this morning that he's filing for divorce on June 1st. He went to his lawyer's office this morning to start the paperwork. I set down the coffee cup. I watched my hand. It was steady. That surprised me. Who told you? Linda called me an hour ago, Henry said. Whoa! Mark went to his lawyer's office early this morning. What? He walked past the reception desk at Whitfield Construction with a folder. Linda asked if he was okay. He told her what he was doing. He said he was sorry. He said he should have listened to you. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, but crack. A hairline fracture. My son. My only child. Standing in the building I built, telling a secretary that he was divorcing his wife because she stole from us. Because she lied. Because she destroyed everything he thought he had. Does he know about Derek? He does. The sheriff's office called him as a witness contact. He admitted that he signed some approvals without reading them or knowing their true purpose. The DA has his statement. I stood up. I walked to the window. The sun was coming up over the trees in my backyard. The same trees that had been there when Betty was alive. The same trees that watched me build a company from nothing. They were still standing. They would keep standing. What happens next? I said. The board meeting adjourned with an interim resolution, Henry said. They voted unanimously to reinstate you as interim CEO effective immediately. The restraining order is still active until the May 8th hearing. Can't set foot in the building until it's dismissed. Well, we can set up a remote video meeting with the accounting department for May 7th. That keeps you in compliance while we start building the new financial controls. I nodded. The courts had the calendar. I would respect it. Set it up, I said. I want new dual signature requirements for any invoice over $5,000. Monthly audits, direct reporting to the board. We can hold the virtual meeting from my home office. You're not wasting time, Henry said. I wasted 3 months while my daughter-in-law bled me dry, I said. Am done wasting time. We hung up. I stood at the window for a long moment. The coffee was cold. The sun was bright. And somewhere in DuPage County, Derek Whitfield was sitting in a holding cell, trying to figure out which of his expensive lawyers he could afford to call. That night, my doorbell rang at 7:18. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Mark stood on my porch. He looked smaller than I remembered. His shoulders were slumped. His eyes were red. He was holding a folder against his chest, like it might hold him together. "Dad," he said. His voice cracked on the single syllable. I stepped aside. He walked in. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had sorted through every piece of evidence, every bank statement, every lie that Vanessa had told. He set the folder down. He didn't open it. "Dad, I'm sorry," he said. I waited. I didn't sit. I stood by the counter, arms folded, watching him. He needed to say more. He needed to earn it. "She told me you were losing it," he said. "She said you were paranoid, that you didn't trust her because she was taking over. She said you were just a bitter old man who couldn't let go." I said nothing. I believed her. He said, I believed every word because it was easier than believing that my wife was stealing from my father. A long silence. Oh, the clock on the wall ticked, the fridge hummed. The whole world was holding its breath. "She's gone," he said. She moved in with her mother this afternoon. She took her clothes and her jewelry and nothing else. The house is empty. The bank accounts will be frozen tomorrow. I'm filing the divorce papers on June 1st. It's already done. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying. Not yet. I want to work, he said. I want to help you rebuild. I know you don't trust me. I don't deserve it. But I want to earn it. I looked at my son. The same son I had held in my arms in the delivery room. The same son I had taught to swing a hammer. The same son I had handed everything to, believing he would hold it safe. He had failed. But he was here. He was trying. "Sit," I said. I sat down across from him. "Tell me everything." Mark sat across from me at the kitchen table. The folder I had built was still there. The evidence spread between us like a wound. "I want to work," he said again. "Tell me what to do." I took a breath. "First thing tomorrow, you call Hugh Morrison. He's been wanting to buy your shares for years." Mark blinked. "Sell my shares? In Whitfield Construction?" "Yes." "That's the company you built." "Exactly," I said, "and I built it with my own two hands, not by signing papers I didn't read and trusting people who stole from me. You sell your shares. You walk away clean." He stared at the table. I watched the struggle play across his face. 38 years old, and he was finally learning what it meant to make a hard choice. "Okay," he said, "I'll call Hugh." He did. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen and listened to him on the phone, his voice steady but low. The deal was done by Friday. Mark Whitfield walked away from Whitfield Construction with $600,000 and not a single share left. The company I had spent 35 years building passed into the hands of someone else. I didn't mourn it. I had already mourned it the day Vanessa had me escorted out. Earlier that week, the court hearing came on May 8th. Vanessa's restraining order was dismissed. The judge read her name and the charges, and I sat in the second row and watched her face go pale. Her personal accounts were already frozen. Oh! Her brother was facing fraud charges. The judge also issued an order barring Vanessa from any financial role in Whitfield Construction. She couldn't touch the books, the accounts, or the payment approvals. I watched her walk out of the courtroom. "No!" She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Mark. She just walked, her heels clicking on the tile, and I knew I would never see her again. Derek Whitfield was convicted on September 15th. He served 18 months at a federal facility in Kentucky. I heard from Henry that he cried during sentencing. Begged the judge for leniency. Said he had kids. The judge gave him 18 months anyway. Be carton. Vanessa was ordered to repay $200,000 to the company on October 1st. $200,000 she didn't have. Her accounts were already frozen. The money would never come, but the order sat on the record like a scar. Mark and I started talking about a new company in late October. We sat in my backyard on a cold Sunday, a legal pad between us, and sketched out the plan. No board, no investors, just him and me. "What do we call it?" he asked. I wrote it down before I said it. "Whitfield and Son Builders." "Huh?" He read the words and nodded. "Okay, Dad." We launched on January 1st, 2024. A single office in a strip mall on Route 59. 2 desks, a phone, a filing cabinet I bought at a garage sale. It was nothing like the old Whitfield Construction building with its brick facade and its long hallway and its boardroom table. It was better. Mark showed up every morning at 7:15. He answered the phone. He pulled permits. He drove out to job sites and talked to subcontractors. He worked harder than I had ever seen him work, and I did not say a word about it. He was rebuilding himself one day at a time. That was enough. On a Friday in March, we finished our first project, a small addition on a house in Oak Park. The owner paid us in full, shook my hand, and said she would recommend us to anyone. Mark and I stood in the empty driveway. The sun was going down. The tools were packed in the back of his truck. "Good job," I said. He looked at me. For a second, he was 20 years old again, standing on a job site with a hammer he barely knew how to hold. "Thanks, Dad," I nodded. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. Trust has to be earned. It does not come with a last name. It does not come with a birth certificate. You have to build it the same way you build anything. One board at a time. One nail at a time. One honest day at a time. That is the lesson I learned. That is the lesson my son learned the hard way. And that is how, at 68 years old, I started over with nothing but the name on my truck and the man standing next to me. If you made it this far, thank you. If you want more stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.